Good morning, good morning, good morning. On this Thursday, August 28th, in the year of our Lord 2025, the very last Thursday in this month. And already people are getting ready for Halloween. It's just amazing to me. Capitalism is such an interesting thing to watch. And you all know, you who know me know that I always say at this point that Christmas is not about Jesus for people. Christmas is about vendors making money. It's about making money. It's about boosting capitalism. And so, when I look at all the costumes and all the candy, I think it was in my neighborhood, it was the day after school started here, which was last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. And the day after the first day of school, man, those shelves, all that school supply stuff, they put it someplace else in the shelves, and they started getting out the candy, and now there's the costumes, and and then it just bothers me that there's so many ways uh, created for us to spend our money, and we really should be saving more than we're spending, but we spend and spend and spend, and then we make the wealthy people more wealthy, and we get more and more poor, which is crazy to me. So something we just need to think about. I don't know about y'all when you were little. We didn't have money enough to get store-made costumes for Halloween. So my mother always made up some stuff, and that some of it was not very creative. But the point of it was, for us, was not to go out to try to look better than everybody else. The point was to go out and get some candy. That was it. And so I think that we teach our kids that money is to spend. You get it, so you spend it, as opposed to saying money is to invest, money is to create wealth for yourself and for your family. And you can get some of the things that you want, but you really need to use the money for what you need, and then bank the rest. And that's a hard lesson for us, because we just, you get a couple of pennies in your pocket when you're young. It burns your pocket until you can go spend the money. And we're like that when we get older as well. So I'm hoping that y'all are thinking about that as you get ready to go out and buy all this stuff for Halloween, and then Christmas, because it's just ridiculous. It's making us more poor, and with all the tariffs and all the crazy things going on in the government, we kind of don't have any stability at all. So I don't even know what we're going to be looking like in 6 months. Mm, it's a very troubling time for me as I think about it. But anyway, I'm glad that you're here this morning. I'm Reverend Susan Smith. People call me Reverend Sue. And I'm so glad that you're here. And I've been doing these Thursday morning readings um, for a minute. They came out of my book, Rest for the Justice Seeking Soul, which, if you're going to buy something for Christmas for people, you can buy that. I'm not going to be mad at you for that. So I've been doing these meditations, and of course, I don't read out of my book all the time, but I go back to it from time to time, because there are some meditations in there that are pretty appropriate for where we are now. But I always write a meditation every single Tuesday, and I read that many times, many to most times now, on Thursday mornings. So it's a secret. I wasn't going to do it today. I thought I'm not going to do this anymore. I don't even know who. I haven't checked the analytics. I haven't checked. I just look very quickly at, the numbers at the bottom of the Facebook post to see how many people are watching, but not many people watching. So I wasn't going to do it today, to be honest. And then I got a text from somebody who said, "I'll see you." I said, "Daggone." I just, but I wasn't doing it. I wasn't doing it. So I'm saying all that to say that if you like these Thursday morning moments together, let me know in an email, crazyfaith2019@gmail.com. And if you know of other people who would you think would benefit from them, tell them about it. And when you're watching this, either on YouTube or whatever platform, please like it and subscribe, so that I can just see, who, if this is worth my time, if I should be doing something else. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But anyway, this morning, there's so much going on. First of all, my God, those two babies, ages 8 and 10, who were shot yesterday. This whole country with its obsession with guns, the Second Amendment above all else, is just sickening to me. And no matter how many babies, how many people get killed in cold blood, the the um, the Republicans, and they won't let go of their desire to hold on to their guns. It's so sick. It's really sick. It's really sick. Um, And I just can't even imagine what those parents must be feeling. I can't imagine you send your baby out to school. They're in church at mass and they get shot to death. Um, and you don't hear much from anybody else. I can't. It's almost too much for me to bear to even think about it. It's and the families of those babies who have died, and also prayers for the people who are in the hospital critically wounded. So Minneapolis had that shooting yesterday and another shooting the day before. And I don't know what all this means. That I just know that it's troubling. So that's one thing we need to think about and put on our prayer list. The other thing we need to think about, and I want to make this a twofold thing, um, is these daggone ICE people. I don't think they're ICE. I think they're like deputized January 6 people. I really do. They don't have nothing to do with ICE. They got little jackets that say ICE, but they're thugs. The way they're acting, they're thugs, and they're not going after bad people. They're going after anybody with brown skin, and then just go morph into black skin. Because I hear now that they're going after the Haitians, and of course they won't be able to tell one black person from another. So you might be Haitian, or you might be all the way born in America, and it won't make any difference. And I heard something yesterday because one of the things that I've been saying is that I think they're planning on putting people in prison, so that they can hire them out, uh, or not hire them out, force them out in the fields so they can make money and not have to pay. That's a modern day slavery system. Um, and they're starting to do that. The 13th Amendment kind of abolished slavery, but it said you could not be enslaved unless you've been convicted of something. And with now this attack on people being homeless, and this man, I don't want to call him that, but this man sending federal troops into cities, and they are directed to arrest anybody for cause. They can do that. A whole lot more of us, a whole lot more black people are going to be in jail. And I think, and I was listening to Laurie Daniel Favors on Sirius yesterday, and she was saying that it looks like what they're trying to do is get these people arrested. No cash bail is being implemented because he signed an executive order against that. So that means that a whole lot more black people are going to be staying in jail. And if you're in jail, according to the 13th Amendment, you can be enslaved. So they'll get their strawberries and their cucumbers picked, but it might very well boil down to black people doing all of that. People don't read enough to understand what kind of danger we're in right now. So many people who did not vote at all, who voted for a third party candidate, are now saying, oh, shoot, I didn't know. Well, you should have known because everybody was saying it. But the thing of it is that we are here now. We are here now. So we need to be thinking and praying about how we can resist what's going on with these thugs. I can't even call them ICE. I don't call the man who's been elected, to lead this country. I can't call him president, nothing. I just call him by his initials, DJT. I just can't do it because he is almost single-handedly, with the cooperation of all these sycophants who follow him, just destroying the country. He's like a bull in a china shop. It's just amazing. So we need to be asking God, how do we resist? How do we resist? Because there are more of us than there are of them. But if we're silent and don't do anything, then we just give them our country, our rights, all that stuff on a platter. So much going on. So much going on. So we need to be praying for a way to resist. Now, one of the ways we resist, if you call yourself Christian, people need to know, and I say this in my Bible studies all the time, don't call yourself Christian and you don't even know what the Gospels say. Come on, the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. A lot of people don't know what Jesus said, or other people know what he said and ignore it. Well, neither one of those makes you a qualified Christian. I'm going to get in trouble, but I'm just saying that you cannot be a Christian and not know what Jesus said and not try to do what Jesus said to do. And a lot of people don't abide by that. I don't know. They think that they can just talk about the Bible, the Word. They talk about that, and that makes them a Christian. No, 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 no. You have to do what Jesus said, call yourself Christian. So anyway, I found this very interesting, or maybe I found it on Facebook, or maybe somebody sent it to me last week, and I wanted to share it with you. I shared it on Sunday in our service. I shared it with my members because I wanted them to understand something. This was brilliant. So my heroine, Jasmine Crockett, took Mike Huckabee down. She took him down over his interpretation of Christian morality. So I'm going to read you this interchange between the two of them. Sister Crockett says, Governor Huckabee, what does Jesus say in Matthew 25 about how we'll be judged? Huckabee, he hesitates and he mumbles something about sheep and goats. Crockett says, that's right, the final judgment. Would you like me to quote it? Before Huckabee could respond, she read directly from her phone. I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. She continued, Jesus doesn't mention abortion. He doesn't mention same sex marriage. He doesn't bring up tax rates or culture war issues. The only criteria Jesus gives for heaven or hell are how we treat the poor, the sick, the immigrant, the prisoner. She looked Huckabee in the eye and she said, so, Governor, if you oppose every single one of those policies, what does that say about your understanding of Christian morality? Huckabee tried to respond, but she cut him off. And she said, Matthew 19:21 says, sell all your possessions, give to the poor. Luke 4:18, proclaim good news to the poor, freedom for the prisoners. Matthew 8, Jesus heals a man with leprosy, touching someone society called unclean. You say, I'm not a real Christian because I support feeding programs for kids, universal health care, and immigration reform. But Jesus said those things are the exact things that determine salvation. Then came the knockout. Jesus never said I was a wealthy corporation and you gave me tax breaks. He never said I was a gun manufacturer and you protected my profits. He never said I was a pharmaceutical company and you let me charge whatever I wanted. Crockett continued, quote, your version of faith asks whether someone deserves help before offering it. But Jesus never said I was hungry and you checked if I had a job first. She quoted Isaiah 58, Proverbs 31, and Micah 6:8, then addressed Huckabee's final attempt to challenge her. Huckabee says, but you still support abortion and same sex marriage. You're picking and choosing. Crockett says the word abortion appears 0 times in the Bible. Same sex marriage, also 0. But caring for the poor, dozens of times. Welcoming immigrants, direct, simple commands, healing the sick, over and over again. So if someone's cherry picking, Governor, it isn't me. And she closed with this. You've spent your whole career telling Christians they have to choose between their politics and their faith. But maybe the real question is this: how can someone claim to follow Jesus while opposing everything Jesus said? And I said, well, you better go on, my sister, and drop the daggone mic. That was powerful, powerful, powerful. So I wanted to read that because I think it is powerful, and I want us to think about that because I will tell anybody, any Bible class I'm in, any church I'm at, or I'm preaching, I'm going to say it because you can't call yourself Christian and ignore what Jesus said. And you won't even know that you're ignoring what Jesus said if you don't read the gospel. So my Bible study students have to read the gospels, and I ask them, what did you read? What part of it got to you? You have to know what's in there. And I'm going to say that to you, especially in this period of time, because I really do believe that our ancestors got through because they knew Jesus. They knew Jesus. They looked at all the stuff that was going on around them, and they looked at and listened to the perception of God that was given to them by their oppressors. But they because they read Jesus, they said, that ain't it. That's what we have to do. We have to be able to say, no, that ain't it. That ain't it. And it gives you a strength. It gives you strength to endure and strength to push and strength to carry on. So I hope that you'll think about that and again keep the families of those 2 babies that were killed yesterday. Just keep them in prayer. Just keep them in prayer and ask God to show you, because I think if every single one of us figure out a way to help combat this, we can have some success, because organized people are more powerful than organized money, even if it's a whole buku amount of money. Still, organized people, especially organized people who love God, not just with their mouths, but with their actions, organized people are stronger. So this morning, I'm going to read you the meditation I wrote for this week, and it's called We Have Enough, We Are Enough. If there's anything we need to think about and embed in our spirits during this time of political, spiritual, and economic chaos, it is that we have enough and we are enough. It is a spiritual marvel that when many of us look back over our lives, we cannot believe that we made it through times when we did not think that we, in fact, would. Some of us, in fact, remember having very little food in the house. Others remember utilities being turned off and parents having to figure out how to keep the house warm in the winter. We remember not having the shoes that we wanted, but having shoes. And we remember that somehow there were always presents under a tree or maybe on top of the table if there wasn't enough money to buy a tree on Christmas. In our in our house there were times when we had government dry milk and government cheese. Lord Jesus, when I think about it, my God in heaven, the dried milk especially drove me crazy. It was awful. But we didn't like the taste of either of them. But the point is that we had them some kind of way. We always had meat, roast beef or fried chicken on Sundays, giblets and gravy, which I still don't like to this day, over rice. Um, and often during the week we would have like a meat that by its name suggests that it went a long way. So we had meatloaf, and then we had these daggone neck bones, a meat by its name that suggested there was not much meat on those bones, but I promise you there was a whole bunch of meat on those neck bones, and I loved them so. And remembering how tasty and meaty they were in my adult life, I purchased them a couple of times, like when my children were little, and later after they had gone, and I was looking for the type of meat, neck bones that my mother had. These neck bones I couldn't find them. I couldn't find them, and I wondered um, what happened. That's a whole nother thing. But we had them. The momentum of memory is important. Dr. Greg Carr talks about that all the time on Nubia. It is life giving and life saving. The truth of the matter is that regardless of not having a lot compared to other people and families who had more money, we always had enough. Always food, clothes, shoes, a little spending money from time to time, and most of all, love. It is easy to fall into despair when we think of our lives as being lacking, when we concentrate on what we do not have. In an economic system that stresses the value of things, it is not surprising that many of us do just that. Think about what we do not have. And even when we have more than what we need, this society's economic system pushes us to want more and more. People with a lot of money seem to worry that they don't have enough and they keep pushing to get more and more greedy, even if that means they resort to stealing it, embezzling it, stealing it from corporations and foundations. I'm just saying, despite the presence of God, too many of us, regardless of how much money we have or do not have, we live with a feeling of dread in our spirits as we ingest a theology of scarcity. In our fear of not having enough, we look over and past what God has put before us, how we've gotten through. And when we have had more than enough, we too often hoard it when we have had more than enough, forgetting that the plenty God provides is so that all God's children can partake. In other words, nobody needs to suffer. We don't believe that we have enough and that there is enough for everyone, or we don't care. I don't know. In addition, because we compare ourselves to others, excuse me, and realize we do not come close to being like the person or persons who have our attention, we too often wind up believing that we are not enough. If we were releasing, we would be where we are straining to be, though that goal was never ours to have. In reaching for someone else's place, stature, or talent, we miss the very specific gift or purpose that God created for us to notice and to nurture. Excuse me, so sorry. As our economy tanks, as we are being pushed into a fascist system of government, as our rights are eroded, as people are yanked off the streets, and as we are so consumed with our own plight that we barely have the time to consider the plight of people all over the world, in our cities, in our states, in Gaza, in the Sudan. We can't consider them and how they are suffering. The Gazans are being starved to death by the government. Other people are starving because of the greed of rulers who are willing to ignore the needs of their people because they are afraid that they don't have enough and are willing to ignore the suffering of others as they feed their fears. That is what the theology of scarcity looks like. But we have enough, and we are enough. I was reading the story again of the Israelites in the wilderness who did not have enough to eat and how God came through. God provided manna and quail for them. Imagine that in the wilderness where all they had was themselves and God. They complained about being hungry and leveled complaints against Moses for doing God's work and leading them from captivity to freedom. They mumbled and whined, and God heard them and provided manna and quail. We all know the story. Interestingly, though, when I have heard that story or read it, I kind of thought, well, manna dropped out of the sky for a couple of days and it was okay. They were okay. But no, no, no. God provided manna and quail for 40 years. 40 years. The way that story was presented to me, or the way I heard it, which affected the way I lived it, did not include the fact that God took care of them while they were in the wilderness for 40 years. God did that, not the government, not the Pharaoh, the scribes, or the synagogue leaders, or the Pharisees, or the Sadducees. God's actions said to them that they had enough because God provided it, always had, and always would. It seems that we have an on time God and a long time God. God has created this world and its resources in such a way that none of us should ever be hungry. None of us should worry. We have enough because God gave enough. All that we need is here. There are sufficient resources for everyone. So, embracing a theology of sufficiency seems to have been an unspoken theology of our ancestors, from the enslaved people who had to create things to eat, like chitlins that are now, delicacies and greens, pulled them things out the garden, and banana pudding. I didn't know that. That was one that came from the days of slavery. I just found that out this week. To black soldiers who fought in both wars, but who were made to sleep in tents in the brutal cold while white soldiers slept in barracks with heat, to the black people of Greenwood, Oklahoma, who, though they lost everything, realized that they had not lost God. No amount of evil could take God away, and they knew it. In these circumstances and more, people banked on the belief that there was enough and that they were enough. And in order to do what they did, they had to believe that they were enough. Despite the standards of the world, they had to realize that when God created them, they were every bit as fearfully and wonderfully made as everybody else. And as they walked in that, the earth shook with the fruit they created. The people running the government right now need to be confronted by a group of people who embrace the theology of sufficiency and let them live in their theology of scarcity by themselves, no matter how hard they try to trample us down and eliminate us, because we believe in and practice a theology of sufficiency. They will lose. They always have. Amen and amen. So that is my Tuesday meditation that I wrote on Tuesday that I'm presenting to you on this Thursday morning experience. I hope that you enjoy it. Um, and I hope that you'll let me know, this broadcast. Should we do it? Do we want to keep on doing it? Just let me know. Just shoot me an email, crazyfaith2019 at gmail.com. So I hope that you have a wonderful day. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. And I hope that you'll keep this world in prayer, because there's a lot of crazy things going on. And it's up to God's people to resist in a way that'll sit them down. That's it. I'll